For perspective on the state of aviation in Asia Pacific, I'm pleased to welcome Vinoop Goel, Regional Director, Airports and External Relations for IATA. Over to you.
Thank you. Hey, thanks. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's good to be back, and I hope Suya is doing well, so hope you recover soon. So today I'm going to give a little bit of a perspective of where we see aviation is in the region and globally, and where we think it can go and what needs to be done. So bear with me while I take you through a few slides and charts and some numbers. The best thing to do on a Friday afternoon, I guess. So just to put things in perspective, pre-COVID, that's 2019, which seems a long, long way ago, air transport accounted for, just for our region, Asia-Pacific region, about 47 million jobs and about $1 trillion in GDP. And if you think about it, all what we are doing, and many of you in the room, is trying to focus on that. We are talking about recovery of travel, tourism. But for what? To make our lives better, to make the lives of our citizens better, to reconnect the world. And ultimately, it leads to jobs and economic growth for many of the people. So, unfortunately, for the last 2 years, the virus has had a huge impact on our industry. So pre-COVID, we are looking at about 100,000 flights a day, about more than 12 million passengers a day. In 2020, that went down to less than half. We saw some recovery in 2021, a little bit. And in 2022, we expect a little more recovery, but still not back to pre-COVID 2019 days. How have we fared throughout the crisis over the last 2 years? So as you can see from the graph, when things started closing down in the first quarter of 2020, borders started shutting down, flights got canceled, people were stranded all over the world. And pretty much the bottom of it was around April 2020, when the world shut down. Since then, we have seen some recovery. And today, if you look at domestic travel, so the figures go up to February of 2022, a month ago, domestic travel is about 80% of what it used to be, so globally. So it's well on its way. International travel, on the other hand, is still 60% down. So it's about 40% of what it used to be. I think Changi Airport had put out some figures for last month. They were 20% of what they used to be. And given that Changi just deals with international travel, it's a big issue. The sort of the silver lining in all this has been air cargo. And what I had shown in the previous slide also, and now, air cargo has been doing extremely well. And we have to thank some of the governments for keeping at least air cargo flying, because air cargo has played a critical role in enabling PPEs to be shipped across the world, and more recently, vaccines and essential supplies to connect the world. So air cargo has been the good story, but if you look at passenger travel, it's recovering, but still not there. There are regional differences, and I think the previous panel talked about it. So if you look at the rest of the world, it's in the range of, they're about half of what they used to be when it comes to international travel. But Asia Pacific, we are 12% of what international air travel used to be. And 12% is around today. For the whole of last year, it was at around 7%. 7% of pre-COVID travel. And as you know, Asia Pacific is a lot about international air travel, and that has taken a huge hit in the crisis. There's some good news. As borders have started to open, we see that people are just waiting to travel. First of all, there's been a lot of repatriation over the last couple of years, a lot of pent-up travel, people not being able to go for weddings and for other events and trying to reconnect. But now we are still seeing travel demand is robust. Ticket sales, if you look at advanced ticket sales, they're fairly robust. Yes, we had a little bit of a downturn because of the conflict in Europe, but things are going well, other than, of course, Russia and China. And as you all are well aware, China is still closed, not only to international travel, but largely for domestic travel also. So that is one of the big worries for us. Looking ahead, and this assumes that things in China and Europe will sort themselves out, we do see a return to normalcy over the next few years. And the graphs and all of our estimates are pointing upwards. Obviously, the red line you see out there, the one which is lagging the others, is Asia Pacific, unfortunately, our region. What is our forecast? Now, again, this is prior to the conflict in Europe. We expect air passengers numbers to recover to the pre-COVID levels by 2024. So this is overall numbers returning by 2024. There were some figures quoted in the previous panel. Yes, business travel will probably start off initially, as travel is still restricted for tourists in many countries. And there'll be a lot of focus on domestic and regional travel rather than long-haul travel. But we expect passengers numbers to return by 2024. There will be regional differences. And pretty much we see North America emerging from it the fastest. And if you have seen reports that flights in the US are pretty much full, we expect them to return to normalcy in 2023. So by next year. The rest of the world pretty much in 2024, but Asia Pacific in 2025. So these were some of our forecasts a few months ago. Where are we right now? What needs to happen in order to enable this recovery? Omicron seems to be the word of the day. And there are countries that are still experiencing the highest numbers of cases that they've ever had over the last 2 years. So the bad news is Omicron is a lot more transmissible. And also, the bad news is you may be vaccinated, but you will probably still get Omicron. I've been to some countries where people have had the Delta and the Omicron, and now they're immune. I think in many cases, people expect they will get Omicron. It's a matter of when. The good news is, if you're vaccinated, you'll probably not fall very sick, and you'll probably not die. And the data shows that. So governments are realizing it, and populations are reaching, population-level immunity. The problem, though, is for those who have tried to travel internationally, it's not easy. We have seen some of the rules change in Singapore, but we took a survey of the top 50 markets globally. The way testing was defined within 24 hours, within 1 day, within 2 days, within 48 hours, within 72 hours, is different. There are about 10 ways of defining when you need to get tested. And frankly, even me and my team who is responsible for managing this, even I have to ask others, what exactly do I need to travel? There's 6 different definitions of when a vaccine is accepted. 1 week after your second dose, 2 weeks after your third dose, and so on and so forth. And their risk assessments are different by every country. There are different ways they're trying to assess risk. And surprisingly, there are many countries that don't even accept the WHO official vaccine list. They have their own list. So what needs to be done? We think that overall, the travel restrictions need to be eased. You have to remove travel bans. They don't make sense anymore. You have to ensure that vaccinated travels are not subject to any more tests. That's a thing of the past. And we are really looking forward to maybe Singapore also eliminating the pre-departure test requirement for coming back into Singapore. Because you don't want to test positive, even though you're not infectious, and then be stuck overseas. Avoid on-arrival testing, but also look at sunsetting the clauses which were put in place 2 years ago, and ensure that you learn in order to do better the next time, because there will be more viruses, there will be more pandemics in the future. We should learn from this. So, in summary, what we think is we have to look at accelerating the travel restrictions removal, the easing of travel restrictions. We have to make international air transport simpler, predictable. You don't want to book and then find that rules have changed between your booking and your flight, and make them more consistent. But if we look at beyond travel, beyond the COVID, the recovery has to be sustainable. And everyone expects and demands that it is sustainable. Emissions is a big issue. So we are proud to say that we are one of the first industries to say we will be carbon neutral by 2050. But then we have to make sure that sustainable aviation fuel is available in a big way to make that happen. And lastly, that everyone is used to a new digital way of traveling. And especially the pandemic has taught us that everything should be contactless. Biometrics can be used. You have now, everyone's got used to a QR code for the test of vaccine certificates. And there was talk about, the smallest of retailers is now accepting a QR code. So there's a lot of technology out there. So the whole theme is that we can get over the virus with some common sense measures. And we can look at growth in the near future by focusing on sustainable travel using digital technology. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and hope that was useful for you. Thank you.